this is my perspective. Take it for what it's worth, but it's been through one painful and one less painful experience in getting a kid through this experience. Probably, pardon me?
Am I the painful one?
Yeah, he's the painful one. Yeah. So, and this would not have been successful without the support of my wife, who's in the back there. So, where you go is not who you'll be. This is an excellent book for you to read. A couple of references that I think are very useful for you is this book and another book called The Fisk Guide. The Fisk Guide is going to give you a summary of all the schools. The other thing that the kids can do, and what Akash did and Sonia did to a certain extent, was look through all the blogs and different things for every school. We discovered a lot of secrets that schools don't want you to know through these blogs, through students who actually log on, and College Confidential and all these other things, and you all know where these are. But I think this is a great book because I'll show you some examples of where people went to school and what they ended up becoming. So it's not at all proportionate to where you go. So I've been in the Fremont community for over 25 years. I grew up here, raised two children who are very different in interests and aptitudes. One went to Mission High School in Fremont, my daughter, who's graduating soon. And one went to a private school in Oakland called the College Preparatory School. Both excellent schools. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. You just have to take them for what they're worth. I did my education in the U.S., both undergraduate and graduate. I never lived in India. My parents are from India originally. I grew up outside the country. My father was with the Foreign Service, so we traveled a lot. I lived in Europe, in Asia, Indonesia, different places. I've been through this twice, so I have I think a perspective. Many of you have also been through it twice, but I decided I'd give this talk for that reason. My daughter's at the University of Chicago. Who's going to the University of Chicago? Go Maroons. They were the first ones to win the Heisman Trophy. Did you know that? Except they have no football team anymore. It's like gone. And they have an excellent gym and a beautiful place. Just don't go south of 70th. It's not very safe, but that's okay. She's at the University of Chicago, bachelor's in economics and history, and will spend a year in India and then go on to graduate school in economics and history after that. She wants to be a professor. My son was accepted to 7 schools and will be attending Rice University in Houston, Texas. Take this talk as opinions, hopefully helpful, and give you some of my perspectives and our perspectives. Some pearls or observations at an early age that we noticed. Multiple activities at an early age are not helpful and in fact can be detrimental. So we'd noticed that many of the children, especially 7, 8, 10-year-olds, were running from place to place every weekend. It was like crazy. We did that for like one summer and we just couldn't do it. I was busy, my wife was busy, we just couldn't do it. We had to compress. And that's one thing that we discovered was very detrimental. The rush to do many things will exhaust you. It'll exhaust you now, it'll exhaust you when your kids are younger. And your child will be exhausted and won't be focused. I've noticed a lot of things that we did where we're trying to push the kids into activities that we perceived or parents perceived were going to be helpful, but they weren't. They'll fail. I mean, I had a lot of parents say, oh, my kid's going to do piano. The kid did piano for 1 year. They bought a $10,000 piano. The kid never did piano again. So, I mean, these are all, if they're not going to like it, you'll know. Believe me, don't buy the $10,000 piano. It doesn't work. Expose them, but find out their aptitudes and likes and dislikes early. So, if at 7 they don't like soccer, don't put them in soccer at 8, 9, or 10. They're not going to be successful. They're not going to like it. They're just not going to like it. Once they like something and may be good at it, be very consistent and focused. I have one kid that I know who's, I think, in Boy Scouts with us still, who's a table tennis person. He's been doing table tennis since he was 6 or 7. He's, I think, 13 now. He's very good. I think he's almost nationally ranked because he's been consistent and focused in one activity consistently. That's what he does. And it's hard to get him to do anything else, but he's very good and he likes it. Spend time at it, get good at it, and support them with time and help. So his father sends him to table tennis courses. Now, to many people, table tennis doesn't seem very useful, but that's his passion. That shows focus and probably will show success in other fields, including when he applies to college, probably, I hope. He's a good kid. Sports are great, but very few of these kids, other than this table tennis kid, will get a sports scholarship. I only know one child that we know that got a sports scholarship. That's it. You'll know by age 10 which one it'll be. I mean, it's uncommon, but your kid may have these special skills, and you may want to put them in sports. Do not shortchange time at homework and studying for outside activities. That's another thing we discovered, was many kids are doing so many things, they're not focused on the core stuff, which is homework and maintaining a decent GPA, especially in high school. We also discovered that looking for activities that complement the academic work, speech and debate is really good. I found, and Akash did speech and debate, for a couple of years? 2 years. I don't think you ended up liking it at the end, but it was good for exposure. And again, we knew that he didn't like it. He moved out. Robotics seems to be very popular. DECA seems to be popular. Student government seems to be popular. And these things have to be done early. So you don't want to enter student government in the junior year and run for president of the class. I mean, that's what we discovered too. If many kids do that, it doesn't work. You have to have built up the resume since 7th or 6th grade. You have to be focused and do that consistently. We also discovered looking for activities that develop leadership skills are important, because many of these kids will become leaders, and you don't develop leadership skills and public speaking skills unless you do these activities at an early age. So therefore, I mean, for Akash, I think Boy Scouts of America was good, Eagle Scout. Look for activities that foster personal growth, stress reduction. Taekwondo is good. Something where they can get to a goal that requires time, effort, and persistence. And I think that that's very useful. Be consistent and limited in focus. The other thing I suggest is don't follow the herd. We see many parents saying, well, what is that kid doing? Maybe I should do that. And the next year they follow the next kid, and then they follow the next kid. Thinking that following the children somehow gives them success. We don't think that works very well. So if everyone else is doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. That's probably, I discovered that when I went into the field I went into, which is dermatology, that there weren't a lot of people doing this. So it ended up that in terms of my life skills, my future, where I'm at, I've had a little bit easier time because not everyone's doing what I'm doing. I swam against the stream, not realizing what I was doing, but it worked out well for me. So being a little different, being off the wall, not doing the same thing as everybody else, in the sea of people, it's, I think, very, very useful. At least for me, it was useful in my career. And I also discovered that you switch a lot. So your children will switch a little bit, when they get into college. My daughter, I think, majored in 3 different things before she figured out what she wanted to do. You're going to change. And that's okay. I mean, if you don't like speech and debate, you can always change it. But eventually, when you find what you want, you've got to keep going and don't stop. Start early when your child is comfortable and expresses an interest. Again, do opposite things. Examples. If your daughter's good at math, and I use the word daughter here, not son, because I think daughters are probably better at math and should be better at math than sons, and science, encourage them to do work in courses in writing and speech and debate or journalism. Why is that? The most successful engineers are the ones who can speak and write well, as are the most successful physicists, as are probably the most successful physicians and business people and lawyers. So if you can write and speak well, and you are really good at math and science, you are that unusual person that every company wants to hire, and you'll move up the food chain. Very few leaders of big companies just have engineering as the background in the valley. They're good at a lot of things. Writing skills development at an early age is very important. I think that that's something we shortchange our children. I don't think we think writing is important enough. The college essay is one of the most important things that you'll write, that your voice will come out when you're applying to college. So if you're not good at writing, it will come out. Encourage them to stick with it. Community service type activities from an early age are good for personal development, social interaction, and helping the community. Helping the community is actually probably a very good thing to do. So whatever you can involve them in, whether it's at your temple, whether it's at anything that they can think about, and if you see that they like something, tell them to pursue it. Tell them not to just sort of say, oh, just go do it at the temple or at the church or whatever social center, ICC. Tell them to begin something, foster something, start something, help people. Because you will learn leadership skills that you will never get anywhere else. So some of the examples, Akash here and a few other kids from Mission and College Prep founded an organization called SOS Bay Area, which has a website you can go to and see what they've done. Some kids got involved in environmental cleanup, etc. Be unique and avoid the large clubs at school that will not allow your children to develop their skills and aptitudes. There's several large clubs at Mission High School that have 70, 80, 90 kids. There's no way you're going to stand out. There's no way you're going to become a leader if you're a part of a large club where you are just a member. At least that's my opinion. I think if you need to begin something, and by the way, SOS has a branch at Mission High School now. And those of you at Mission who want to join, who should they contact? Who's the leader now? It's Justin or Jonathan Wynn. So find Jonathan. He's in the. He's a sophomore. There's a junior who's also involved there. I'll get you the names. So you think the college application process is hard? These are people who actually have this as a job. It's not a job I would want, but this is people who detect whether underarm deodorant actually works. It's a real job, by the way. This is a real photograph. This is not made up. This is not photoshopped. Junior high. Refine and continue activities. Stay focused. Summer activities. Align with organizations that will allow your child to move up in the ranks and show their abilities. It's very important that they start getting skills at leadership, at organizing events. So one of the things I discover with kids is when you give them responsibility and say, you have a week to organize this event, if they truly want to do it, they'll do it, and they'll move heaven and earth to do it, and they'll learn a lot. They'll learn how to cajole people, how to invite people, how to get people to attend, how to do a lot of activities. Encourage travel if possible. Many of you go to India. Well, why don't you go to a city different than where your parents or grandparents or relatives live? Go see different places there. Look at the need in that country. See what's needed, because you'll find something in your village or in your home that something needs to get done, or in Fremont something needs to get done, and your child can do it. And it'll improve the area, get them leadership skills, make them a better person. Ask a senior in high school that you know to be a mentor for guidance. You know a lot of older kids. Don't let them slough off in that summer between high school and college. Grab them and say, hey, give my kid advice. Can he email you? Can she email you? Can she call you? I think the advice of these very smart kids up here for your children who are in, junior high, maybe 14, 15, align with somebody. Be nice to them. Take them out to dinner if their parents will allow you. And say, what should we do? What's different? What's the wrong things? What's the right things? High school. Limit the activities again. Start looking for college counselors in the freshman year for guidance. We at CPS and even at Mission High School have good counselors, but I think you need to call Mrs. Sudami probably at the 8th or 9th grade level, and you've got to ask her, when is the time that we need to start coming in and talking? Because if you don't do it early, I think you'll have misguided steps and you may make mistakes that you won't be able to rectify. Focus on grade maintenance. All colleges have a cutoff GPA. It's just standard. There's a formula that they use with ACT, SAT, and GPA, and if you're above that, they're going to look at you. If you're below that, they're probably going to put you in a different pile. Show that you're taking the most competitive courses that your school has to offer, not just till junior year. They're going to look at that senior year, that first and second semester too. So it's important. Look at courses at the local community college. That's not something we did, but I think that's very useful to kind of get prepared for some of the courses in college and shows some level of skill set development at an early age. Look for research opportunities early on in the freshman year. That's pretty early. But if your child has a research interest in engineering, physics, math, look for research opportunities. You never know. Many colleges and many professionals in college, especially professors, are looking for an extra set of hands. You know these people, a lot of you. Relatives, friends, work contacts. There's got to be something your kid can do. For the medically oriented, research is better than shadowing or volunteering at the local hospital. So in my experience, many of my patients ask me, I have a daughter or son, can they shadow you? I go, they're not going to learn anything. They don't have the experience. If they were in medical school or residency, I'd say, yeah, because they have experience. But at a high school level, the high school person barely can put their pants on straight. They don't know how to do it. I mean, they'll come, but they'll end up spending a lot of time, and they'll look around with a glazed look on their eyes, and they'll go, oh, what's that? What's that? They don't know. But medical research, I think, will get them at least interested in the science of what they're trying to do. And I think these opportunities exist. They're competitive. They're not easy to get. But starting early, I think, is very useful. For the non-medical, look at opportunities at the local universities by contacting professors in the departments of the fields your child is interested in. So, for example, my daughter contacted somebody at one of the local universities, and the person loved that she actually reached out and said, okay, come. And they did a project together. Very important, just doing this work in the summer before the senior year is not enough. So I know many parents who send their kids off in that junior year, senior year gap to do a course somewhere, at Emory, Brown, somewhere. I don't know if that's that useful, because that's just that summer. I think doing something for several summers before is probably more useful and shows more focus. And probably gets more benefit. And many times a child in the sophomore year will suddenly say, I don't like medicine. I want to do computer science, I want to do finance, I want to do law, I want to do politics, I want to do something else. That's a good time to learn rather than when you're graduating from college. SAT prep. I have a lot of stories about SAT prep. A lot of bad stories about SAT prep. So the local places on Mission Boulevard, and you know who they are, may not be the best. They initially make you and your child feel inadequate to sell you more services. I know that that's what they do. So this young man went in and took a test, and the guy said to him, the kids at Mission High School scored higher than you. And my son said, regrade the test. So they regraded, and they said, you were 300 points higher. So it was a scam. It was a scam to make you feel inadequate so you would buy their whole package of services for coming there over and over again. And this is at the corner, right across from Maloney College, and you know what the one I'm talking about. So they feed into the competitive pressures many of us from Asia have felt in our own upbringing. The more prep I do, the better score I'll get. This is what I call this is a common syndrome in Korea and Japan and China and India, where the kids are working from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. They have preschool before school before school. It doesn't quite work. Your child will benefit more from an individualized approach. Ask Mrs. Sudami. It's probably much better to do what she tells you to do than what those guys tell you to do. Consider the ACT. Many schools look at the ACT very favorably, and it may be a test that is more attuned to what your child will do. When to start? Well, that's a tough question. I think probably sophomore or junior year. But again, Mrs. Sudami can give you the best guidance. It's whatever your child can do. And you may not need to do a prep class. Maybe the SAT book is all you need. If your child is really good at it, that's all they need. And you'll know. You may not need to do all 3 sections. I don't know right now, where your child sits. College apps. Stressful, but you can get through it. Start early. Get connected with the school and outside counselor by the sophomore year. So know who your counselors are. Get familiar with them. Don't waste time till in the junior year when everybody else is trying to do it. Start getting the college list by mid to end of junior year. So I think most of you, probably by the end of junior year, have a short list of reaches, definites, and possibles. And you need to have that list, and it can be any number. I think for us it was about 3 or 4 in each bucket, and then there were the UCs and the state schools. Start the Common App by July of summer before application year. The application process, including the number of essays, especially places like the University of Chicago. How many essays were at the University of Chicago? Like 8 or 9, right?
No,
3. 3? God, it seemed like it was endless. It seemed like every minute there was another essay coming from there. Okay. So, I'll tell you the unique story about my daughter and what she did with her essay in just a second. Visit colleges the summer after junior year. You may discover places you really don't want to go, with weather that you don't like, with people you don't want to be around. So let your child do this with the help of the counselor. I repeat, let your child do this. Many of us have this desire because we're micromanagers in our own lives and at work to get in there and do the work for them. Many college counselors have told us and told me that the admissions people will figure this out. They know. They're pretty smart. They're not stupid. That's what they do for a living. They read thousands of essays and they can figure out who wrote what. Take the advice of Mrs. Sudami again. You know what you do well in engineering, in business, in medicine, and she knows what she does well. This is her job. Let her do it. Let her guide you and kind of follow the path. Set a course and don't waver too much off it. Multiple rewrites of the essay are common. Always have a backup in sure admit school. Not everyone will get into an Ivy League or highly competitive school. And you may not want to get into a highly competitive school. I'll tell you why. Be realistic. That's the one. I had a parent call me, and I had a parent tell me one time that, my son, he's a topper. He's a topper. He's the best. He was number one in his class. Topper. I said, what else does he do? He said, he's a topper. Straight A's. I said, what else does he do? He's a topper. He kept using the word topper like 7 times with me. I said, you better be careful. That's not all this kid needs to be. Because if, for example, a competitive school, I don't know, like Columbia, admitted all toppers, it would be very boring. They want a community of children, and I mean young adults. They don't want just toppers. So be realistic. The Ivy League syndrome. It's hard to get in, it may not be worth it. Difficulty may not indicate a better education. What I call the little fish in the big pond syndrome may make it difficult for your child and an unhappy college experience. I'll give you a few examples. I know 3 young women, very smart women. One's at Yale, one's at Harvard, and one's at Brown. They all started out as, I think, biomedical engineering, chemistry, chemical engineering majors. It's very difficult at these schools. They've all become history of science majors, all 3, and they're applying to medical school. So what's happened is that you've taken a young woman who probably would have done very well at a smaller, maybe less stressful school, and probably would have gotten into a very good medical school, and basically, because of the stress of being at a highly competitive school, made her not want to do those majors, which is, I think, a travesty, because she may then end up not liking medicine, or applying and deciding not to go, or not getting in where she wants. And the history of science is a great major if you're trying to get into medical school, or if you're going to teach, but there's limited numbers of those people and limited number of slots. So it may have been better for some of these people to go to schools that were a little less kind of competitive, but still rigorous. So I just felt kind of, that you took somebody who could have been very good and maybe would have loved chemical engineering and maybe gone in forwarding chemical engineering and not gone into medicine. But I thought that was kind of an unusual thing, and it was surprising that all 3 women did exactly the same thing, and they said the same reasons. And they were very good schools. So think out of the box. Smaller schools, Haverford, Swarthmore, Claremont McKenna. Selective, very good, very focused, lots of attention to the student. And I'll go over my opinions of the UCs in just a little while. Look at schools with excellent programs in the field that your child wants to do. University of Chicago for economics, Carnegie Mellon for computer science. Somebody's going to Carnegie Mellon here, right? CMU? There you go. Computer science, engineering. Rice for pre-med. WashU for pre-med. Cal Poly for engineering. Notice there's no Ivy League schools here. Not to say that they're not great schools. I'm just saying think out of the box. Reed is an amazingly good school. Reed has the highest percentage of young people going on to professional and pre-professional programs. I think it's in the range of 80 to 90% of people applying from Reed, applying to medical school, get in. U.S. medical schools, which nobody knows about Reed. Focus on the quality of education and be realistic in your choices. Look at places that have really good stuff in the field you want to go into. Go to the web blogs for each college. The truth usually comes out in the web blogs. A lot of stuff is there. The essay is very important. Once the cut is made with grades in SAT, then it's the recommendations, which you can't control, and the all-important essay. So the ability to write for an engineering or a math or science student, I think, is very important. You have to write, you have to be verbal, you have to be able to communicate your skills. Extracurriculars were covered previously, which you can't change by the junior year because you've done everything. I'll give you some examples. The topper who did not get into Stanford. Okay, so we know a girl who was valedictorian of her class, didn't get into Stanford. Why? Who knows? Maybe it wasn't her year. Maybe if she applied the year after, she would have gotten in. She did not fit into the profile for that year for the community that Stanford was trying to create. So it was no big deal. She ended up going to a very good school, but her parents were just, so disappointed. Now she's very happy and the parents are very happy, and now we talked to them and they said, oh, it's great. She went to the place she needed to go and she's very successful. The person who did get in that year was a kid who founded the Dungeons and Dragons Club at their high school and invited the inventors of Dungeons and Dragons to come, gave a talk, and got in. But didn't do that invitation to the Dungeons and Dragons inventors just to get into Stanford, but there was an unusual kid and showed out-of-the-box thinking. So that's just weird. How important the essay is? Well, Mrs. Udame gave me a story one time. about somebody I know who applied to a moderately selective college, and she met the person who read this girl's essay, and the essay was on some off-the-wall topic, and I didn't even really read that essay very carefully because it was my daughter's essay. And it was the essay that got my daughter into the University of Chicago, because the admissions person said it was the essay that got her in. So the essay is very important. And Mrs. Adami will confirm this story and it was I didn't even know this. In fact, I read my daughter's essays the day after she sent the applications, and she refused to let me look at them.
You still haven't read mine.
And I haven't read his. I have not read them. Because I would have tried to manipulate them, and I'm glad she didn't let me do it. But that was the key, was one essay, 500 words, on an off-the-wall topic, which I never would have thought of, that got her in. So, keep your mouth shut. The example of that is the same parent of that first child, of the topper, said, Ivy League, she'll get in, no problem. She didn't. But she got into a very good school, so keep your mouth shut. You never know. Remember that Steve Jobs was a Reed dropout, okay? He went to Reed, he was very successful later. John Chambers did not go to an Ivy League school. And it's very interesting. I know a lot of hiring people. People are hiring at Cisco, Google, different places now. They've told me that they're not looking at students from named schools so much. They are looking at them, but not as much. And there's some reasons why that I was kind of surprised about. So anyway, it's important that you just go to the place you need to go, and you'll be, I think, very successful and very happy. It's almost better to be a big fish in a smaller pond. Where's that? Does anybody know? Yeah, that's close, but it's about 8,000 miles away from that. That's close. That is the British Virgin Islands. That's a nice little place I wish we were today in this cloudy day. So, anyway, anybody have any questions? I'm done. It's my last slide. Questions? And thank you for Mrs. Adami for inviting us. No, questions. Nobody has any questions?
I'm also here to answer questions.
Yeah, he's here. Well, yeah.
So, you mentioned that the kid should pursue what their passion is.
Yes, sir.
But what if the passion is something but the kid is not good at it?
I mean, I think it's better to be passionate about one thing and you develop the skills and you get as good as you need to be. I think that's a good question, but that's your perception of how good the kid's going to be. Maybe the kid is happy at the level that they're at. If they play table tennis for 9 years and you will get good at there's a rule called the 10,000 hour rule, that it takes 10,000 hours of doing something repetitively to get good at something. Okay? You'll get good, you may not be great, but you'll get good. The 10,000 hours of playing table tennis, you'll be good. You'll be better than anybody in here. I think that you better to do what you're passionate about. Yes, sir. I'll go right. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned you had an opinion on the UCs.
Yes. So in terms of my opinion of the UCs is that they're an amazingly good system. Probably one of the best values in the world for what you pay, except if you're from out of state. Then it's still a great value. I think they're really good for things like electrical engineering, computer science, mechanical engineering, econ, probably English, history, the other things. I have a controversial opinion about them for pre-med. So I think that in the pre-med category, the number of volume of people applying from, say, UCLA, what's the number, Akash, from UCLA applying? It's like, I don't know, I think close to 1,000 pre-meds every year apply.
I think they supply about 3% of the amount of applicants to U.S. medical schools, which is the largest of any other school.
So that's a large number. It's difficult to be kind of a unique individual from there, where people are going to look at you and say, and most people at UCLA do well. So how are you going to stand out among all the other UCLA? So pre-med, some of the more selective kind of pre-professional programs, I don't know if I think it's hard. It doesn't mean you can't do it. I know many many of the residents that I teach at Stanford a lot of them went to UCs, but it's hard. So, you had a question? Yeah. And I think overall, the funding is now back. So if you asked me this question 5 years ago, I would say, oh my God, it's like terrible funding. Things are very hard. The other thing is you're going to have to expect to stay there for 5 years. It's very difficult to get all your classes. That's the other thing we've heard from multiple people, that, it's just harder to get the classes you need. But if you're doing computer science, electrical engineering, at CM, that's a great program there. It's a great program. You'll never leave your dorm room, but it's a great program. So, any other questions? Huh? Oh. No, that's okay. That's all right. Good.
So I do agree with the strategy to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Absolutely.
Where do I look for those clean small ponds?
That's our job.
That's their job. But I think the FISC guide is a good guide to start with. Yeah.
How do I spell that guy?
FISK. Yeah. Sorry. I haven't looked at that book for 5 years now, so. Yeah, but she's the ultimate guide, huh?
We just looked at it.
Oh yeah, we did just look at it. That's right. Forgot. Sorry. We tried to look through the guide to figure out which school that you wanted to go to. Any other questions? No? God, she's been counseling you very well.